Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self-improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. How are you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in to The Composed Artist. I'm so excited to chat with you guys today. This week, there's a lot going on this week. Oh my gosh. My emotions and my calendar are just completely lopsided this week. My kids are transitioning out of school, they're graduating from kindergarten and wrapping all of that up, and then kind of getting into the stride of summer and summer sports, summer activities, whatever. My online course, The Wedding Painter's Blueprint, wrapped up this week as well. I try to line it up with graduation and the end of school so that we can all officially finish the course, finish that kind of school element, the learning element, and then enter summer and enter, the next round of tasks that we want that we set for ourselves, my students and myself. And then also something really big happening this week, the legal page. My friend Paige Griffith, she runs the legal page. It is a contract shop for wedding and event professionals. Every contract that you can imagine under the sun, she has available as a template, and she's running her mid-year sale this week. So from May 19th through May 22nd. So by the time you hear this episode, it is the last day of her mid-year sale. So she runs the sale twice a year. So it will come again, but the sale is 40% off everything in the shop. It's incredibly generous. Every contract template that she has, every agreement, every amendment, every clause, everything that's available for you to snag for your business is available basically at half off. And I have a very special code that I want to share with you guys as an affiliate for the legal page. If you use my special code TCA10 at checkout, you can save an additional $10. That's my exclusive code. Use it if you would like. But the link is in the show notes if you would like to visit the contract shop at thelegalpage.com. Please do. I highly recommend her templates. I highly recommend her contracts. I think that every artist, whether you're a live painter or a studio artist or do commission work, especially anyone who works with a client, I think you should have a client, like a full client contract. I have my own client, my live painting contract, and then I also have a commission contract. And in this episode, we're going to talk about certain clauses that I think you have to have in your contract. And then I think every artist should definitely have a contract when dealing with a client, because people are emotional. People change their minds. People lie and say, I didn't say that. Gaslighting is a big thing these days. So we don't want you to be gaslit by your clients. And we definitely want you to do incredible work that is set to a very high standard that is agreed upon by your client in an agreement. And then also we want you to get paid and not ghosted and not have to go after people to get paid for the work that you did. We also are considerate of the clients as well. What are their expectations? If they're commissioning you to paint at their wedding a year from now and they're paying you all this money, what guarantees do they have that you're going to do what you say you're going to do? So it's vital. Having a contract as a live wedding painter or a commission painter, I think is very important. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I did want to say, if you're listening to this episode in the future, not on May 22nd, 2025, when the episode is going to air. The contract shop is open and available. You can purchase anything in the shop. And if you use the code TCA10, you will save 10% on your purchase, which is also very generous. So the code is active year round, but this week in particular, and then of course in the upcoming mid-year sales events, 40% off. That's huge, especially if you're buying one of the bigger contracts, like the full-on client contracts for a live event artist. Paige has an incredible live event artist contract, and I'm honored that her team reached out and asked me to review it, because I've been working in the industry for so long. I've got a lot of experience, especially dealing with the nuances of the job that we do as live painters, and what we need to know and what our clients need to know. Certain experiences that I've had that have led me to include verbiage and literally write my own clauses that are like, this ain't happening again. That was, I've edited my contract. It's like 10 pages long, you guys. It's very thorough. But I was able to review pages, and hers is incredibly thorough as well. So another part of the Legal Pages templates that I really like is that they're fully editable. So you go, she comes in, it's a document, and then you can read like fine print that she's added. Some things are really important, and like verbiage wise, you should keep included. Don't touch that. But then there are other parts where she includes like options, and she'll put them in like highlighted in yellow or red. And it's like, this option is based on the service that you provide or your own timeline, your turnaround time. Like, it's very customizable. And then she'll offer another suggestion if this, it's like A or B, which one feels more appropriate to you. So she really does provide thorough verbiage. If you don't know the words, if you don't know, if there doesn't exist online a live wedding painting contract. When I started this business 10 years ago, that did not exist. I started with the framework of a wedding photographer's website contract, because those existed. Those were more readily available. And then I altered it to reflect my service, and then what to expect from my clients can expect from me. But anyway, her templates are very editable, and they're well written, so that you could keep it very close to as it's written, and then just tweak it to your own process. Okay, when you deliver the painting, what materials you use, what your style is, things like that. And then I would recommend, and she recommends this as well, to have your own attorney review your contract before sharing it with your clients. Having an attorney look over the changes that you've made and the customizations that you've made based on your location are really important. Very important, because the verbiage matters. My husband is an attorney, and one of his favorite things to say is the contract governs. So if you have a hypothetical question about something that could happen with a client, he will say, the contract governs. Whatever you guys agreed to, that is what you have to look back upon. Sometimes that helps you defend your case, but sometimes that kind of shows you where maybe you did not deliver what you said you would. And in the matter of painting and fine art and expectations with paintings and fine art, being very clear about what it is that you're going to deliver is important. I wish that clients that asked us to paint whatever we feel inspired to paint, and they trust us, I wish that would fly more often than it does. In fact, I tell my students all the time, if you get a client like that, that's amazing. That's ideal. Love that. But give them, in response to that, tell them what you're going to do and have them confirm it in the contract. So if they say, I don't care if you're asking, what scene do you want me to paint, first dance or the ceremony or whatever, and they say, oh, it doesn't matter to us, we trust you, tell them, okay, well then this is what we're going to do. This is what the plan is. This is what the painting is going to be like. This is how many people, this is how large, here are some details. Does this work for you? Because this is what's going in the contract. So coming to very clear understanding, or as the attorneys love to say, a meeting of the minds, being very clear, like visual descriptions of an abstract concept, like a finished painting, is very helpful. It's vital. Contracts are so important. So, okay, let's talk about what is included in the contract. Okay. Wedding industry specific. Wedding industry specific. We have to think about the fact that the weddings are like productions. And so there are like timeline elements that are involved. There's a lot of emotions that are involved. You can't just really go by how you feel or what you've seen on Pinterest. There are some very clear expectations that have to be written down and agreed to, initialed, signed, that kind of thing. Um, and Paige shares on her Instagram account, the legal page, and it's THELEGAL, legal page, PAIGE. And I'll link all of this in the show notes. But she's been very thorough in explaining what she thinks is very important to have in a contract. And so a lot of the information that I'm about to share is pulled from what's included in my own contract based in my personal experience, and also things that she has repeated. Paige also made an appearance inside the Wedding Planner's Blueprint as a guest expert recently and shared a lot of this information in the course as well. We're very fortunate to have some guest experts in the areas of business and art and wedding industry specific come in and answer questions and give case studies, and it's kind of an exclusive opportunity to learn from these people, and Paige was one of them. We were very honored to have her inside the course. And so these are some of the things that she's also suggested to include in a contract, but I did want to confirm, like, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just what's included in mine, and for good reason. And then you can confirm that with Paige as well. So I have a wedding contract specifically written for weddings. I have a live event painting contract, which is kind of tailored more toward corporate events, less emotions, less single client, single recipient desires, more like what's the painting going to be like and what's the purpose for the corporation or the event itself, whatever. And then I have a commission contract as well. So I have different agreements written specifically for the purpose of who's receiving it, what the product will be, what the expectations are, the deliverables, that kind of thing. So let's talk about the wedding contract real fast. I have a client information section. Not only do I get as much contact information from the client as possible, but I have another section required for a secondary contact. So usually that would be the coordinator of the venue or the wedding planner. This is incredibly important to me because while I do need to know how to get in touch with the client and where they live, what their phone numbers are, what their email addresses are, primary, secondary, their Instagram handles, things like that, on the wedding day, I am not going to be calling the bride. I'm going to be wanting to reach out to the planner and, before the wedding day as well, confirming details of the wedding day, confirming like the floor plan. Where do I park when I get there? You need a secondary contact. If there's an emergency, if I get caught in traffic, if I get in a car accident myself and I'm held up for 3 hours or whatever, if I am traveling and I'm stuck at a layover and the connecting flight is canceled, like anything can happen. And so having a person to contact is somebody other than the bride, very important. Okay, so that's something I include in my contract, and Paige does as well. Wedding day information section, where the locations, because usually there's a ceremony venue and reception venue, where the locations are, the timeline, and then confirm that like multiple times. When is the party starting? When does it end? So I can pace myself accordingly, those kind of things. The terms of the contract. What are you agreeing to? What's the expectation? What is the scope of the project? What are you delivering? In this section, it's in my contract. It's very long because it's like, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the plan. Here's when I set up. Here's what I'm delivering. Here's what you can expect in terms of following the event. The handoff is really important. If you don't have a plan for who you're giving the painting to, or if it's going to be delivered at the end of the night or delivered in person after the event, or if you have to ship it, who's paying for that? Who is the person receiving the painting? At what point is it my responsibility? And then at what point does that responsibility transfer to the next person so that it's not my fault if they drop it and it's ripped or scratched or something? Like, all of these things need to be considered and put in the contract. Okay. And they can be customized. Like, you can customize a contract based on everybody's different situations. Somebody that lives in my neighborhood can probably do a pickup. Whereas if I travel to an international location, we're going to have to, there's a little bit more logistics involved with delivering the painting following the wedding. Hey, live wedding painters, have you taken a minute to evaluate your business yet? Have you started to think about next year yet? As this year comes to a close, it's important for each of us to take a moment and reflect. Did you hit the goals you set for yourself? Did you set goals at the beginning of the year at all? Was there any clarity in your vision for your creative business, or have you just been hanging on for the ride? Now, imagine starting next year with a clear plan, a year where you're building a stellar portfolio and booking dream weddings, showing up with confidence and taking bold steps toward your career goals. That's exactly what my goal setting workbook is here to help you achieve. Created for the members of my online course, The Wedding Painter's Blueprint, the Goal Setting Workbook is more than just a place to jot down ideas. It is your roadmap to success for the year ahead. With guided evaluations, you'll identify your unique personal and professional challenges. You'll address physical and psychological elements that might be holding you back. And you will set clear, achievable goals and map out the steps to reach them so you can turn your vision into reality. This workbook is free to download and print so you can physically write down your goals. It includes tools to help you track your growth and adjust as needed, and will actually help you take vague dreams and turn them into concrete plans, and turn those plans into real success. Next year doesn't have to feel uncertain. The Goal Setting Workbook will help you take charge of your career and step into the new year with purpose and direction. Click the link in the show notes to download your free version of my goal setting workbook and kick 2025 off with clarity. My particular contracts have like touch-up periods, and then that is also kind of customized what they can expect in the studio after, how long they have to wait for the painting. Sometimes you can finish it if you're working in acrylic. You can finish the painting and deliver it at the end of the night. Who are you handing it off to, that kind of thing. But if you're working in oils, or if it's your process to take the painting back to the studio, how long can they expect to wait for their painting to be finished? This one is where I have been caught up in the past, where my schedule gets really busy around the holidays, or maybe I have a baby, because that happens every other year for me. And the delay, the turnaround time is delayed by months. So a painting that maybe takes 6 weeks to dry isn't finished or able to be picked up because I haven't done those touch-ups for 6 months. Like, this is something that holds me accountable to finish, to adhere to this contract, this agreement that I have with each client. Okay. Exclusivity. If you want to include an exclusivity clause, if you don't want somebody to tell their cousin that they can come and paint for free, for fun, for practice, and then that cousin ends up negatively impacting your experience on the job, you can include an exclusivity clause. I like to have one in mine. Intellectual property. A lot of the paintings that we do are commissioned, custom, personal paintings. It's a portrait of the bride and the groom, or a portrait of the person or the people. And so it's not necessarily something that could be reproduced and resold, but all forms of art, like all forms of original art or fine art, should be, you should specify who owns the copyright, and then what kind of copyright you as the artist retain. So unless there's like a non-disclosure agreement, which the legal page also provides a non-disclosure agreement. I highly recommend you have one of those. You may be asked to sign non-disclosure agreements by some well-to-do clients who don't want you to share the image of the painting after. But unless you sign one of those, you should be able to retain the rights, at least to share the image in your marketing efforts, at least to put it on your portfolio. So definitely have that in there. And then I have a section that I added about video and photographic footage. You can include a model release, which it gives you permission to release images of people that were included in the painting, in the video footage, whatever. But after having been requested many times by clients, can I get the time-lapse footage? Can you send me the videos? I don't always take videos. I try to. It's my effort to create content for social media and marketing, things like that, to set up a tripod and record the process of the painting. But sometimes that camera dies. Sometimes I'm in a really cramped space and I don't have room. It would not work logistically to have another tripod set up behind me to record the process. Sometimes I'm set up too close to the band and the band is vibrating really loudly and heavily, and it completely distorts the footage that I do take. And so sometimes I'm not able to like even get that for myself. So the footage that I take is not part of the scope of the project, and it's not guaranteed. And without an NDA or some other formal request, I do have the right to capture that footage, the work in progress, the time lapse, because that's the way that I market my work, is through time lapse videos and reels on Instagram. Okay, then the services and the scopes of the project, what it is that you're providing, how big the canvas is. I would go into as much detail as possible. It's a 24 by 36 horizontal oil painting of the first dance, featuring the bride and the groom on the dance floor, including a silhouetted crowd, a subtle band, and the parents in greater detail, painted at night. Like, be as specific as possible. And then you base this description on the conversation that you've had, the discovery call, the vision casting, sessions that you have with the bride or the groom ahead of time. Figure out what they want, get to a point where they're like, yes, heck yes, I want this. This is it. And then it's a matter of how big and how much. And then you put that in the contract. Travel fees. Travel fees are really important to clarify, because we're not profiting on travel fees. Like, if it cost me $1,200 to fly from New Orleans to Denver and drive 3 hours to the mountains and stay at an Airbnb and, drink a cup of coffee and have a meal every day, if it cost me $1,200, I'm not profiting from that. That doesn't even include maybe a daily meal stipend that I would add also. And so whenever you're giving a quote or you're communicating costs with a client, I think it's important to specify this is the quote that I'm giving that just gets me there. And then I would also include that as a line item. And so when you're kind of recapping the amounts and what's being paid for, that travel fee is separated and then kind of included in the total bundle. And then, of course, there is a little bit further down, I'll mention there is a travel fee return policy, because that needs to be specified as well. If the money cannot be refunded, if I'm caught in a layover at the airport and my connecting flight is canceled and I physically cannot get to the venue, traveling from New Orleans to Denver, I have a layover in Detroit, which is random, but let's say I have a layover in Detroit and there are no more connecting flights that day. Unless I'm like, I think on my feet and I have time to rent a car and drive to Denver. I mean, unless I can go above and beyond and make it there somehow in a superhuman way, I can't get there. And the money is spent. And so who pays for that? I can refund the couple's payments to hire me. I can refund all the money that they spent for me, but maybe there's $600 that neither one of us gets back. That needs to be talked about as well. Something to think about. A lesson that I've learned the hard way. Like, who covers that? Oh. But that's a risk that you take when you hire a vendor from out of the state and then fly them in. Okay. Other a la carte sections. There's an a la carte section where you can include thank you cards or framing or whatever you want. Specify what that is and specify how long it would take to deliver those items. You may have heard me talk about my little side business, my little fine art print shop. I create an original painting, I take a photo of it, and I print it, and I print it again and again and again. I make hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars a year on prints. It's so easy. And I learned everything I know about creating my own prints and printing them in-house from Lori Ann Gonzalez and her Art to Print course. I highly recommend, if you are an artist and you want to make easy money from your original works and even the commission works, you can resell those as prints. I recommend you check out Art to Print. Lori Ann has a very direct way of teaching, and you are really going to appreciate her no fluff method of giving you information and telling you exactly what you need to do to make making fine art prints in your own studio a breeze. You can check her out online at learn.loriannart.com. That's learn at LAURIEANNEART.com, or just click the link in the show notes for my affiliate link. Check her out and thank me later. Artistic release. This is so important, you guys. This is why I wanted to record this episode. Artistic release. In this section, it says, I'm going to read it verbatim. The client has spent a satisfactory amount of time reviewing the artist's portfolio and has a reasonable expectation that the artist will perform the services in a similar manner and style unless otherwise specified in this agreement. That's style. And then consistency. Consistency. The artist will use reasonable efforts to ensure the client's desired services are produced in a style and manner consistent with the artist's current portfolio, and the artist will try to incorporate any reasonable suggestion made by the client prior to the event or during the revision stage. However, the client understands and agrees that every client and event is different with different tastes, budgets, venue aesthetic, and needs. Live painting services are often a subjective art, and the artist has a unique vision with an ever-evolving style and technique. The artist will use her artistic judgment when providing services for the client, which may not include strict adherence to the client's suggestions. Although the artist will use reasonable efforts to incorporate the client's suggestions and desires when providing the client with services, the artist shall have final say regarding the aesthetic judgment and artistic quality of the services. And last but not least, dissatisfaction with the artist's aesthetic judgment or artistic ability are not valid reasons for termination of this agreement or request of any money returned. So this is so important. It's important for both parties. It's important for the clients to understand that they are hiring the artist to do what they do best and what is shown in their portfolio. Okay. It takes an immense amount of trust that the artist is going to do what they say they're going to do, and they're going to live up to their reputation. And their reputation is proved by the portfolio. And it is important that the artists don't try to mimic another painter's style. It's important that you as the artist do not promise that you can paint like that. Oh, I can do that. You want that art, you want so-and-so's style if they're not available, or if you want a discount, I can do that. Trust me, hire me, I got you. And then you can't, because we all know when you stand up, or maybe you don't know, when you are standing and creating a painting on the fly in ever evolving lighting and elements, maybe you're outside, maybe you've got to relocate, maybe you've got in a short amount of time under the pressure of 100 plus watchful, judgmental eyes, you cannot mimic another artist's style, and you certainly can't do it well. What you create on site, live at a wedding or an event, is organically what comes from you, from your mind, eye, heart, hand, paintbrush on the canvas. And so be very authentic and transparent and confident in what you can create and what your style is, and create a portfolio that represents that. I would even go so far as to differentiate on your website and in your marketing and in your conversations, differentiate the difference between your live work and your studio work. My live paintings have a different vibe, a different aesthetic, a looser style than my studio work. Why? Because it's a different environment and different pressure. It takes me twice as long to do my studio paintings. I charge less, but that's just my process. That's how I feel comfortable. And my work is tighter. The work is more detailed, a little bit crisper in the studio. And so if somebody sees a studio painting and they say, can you do something like that? I'll say, yeah, but just so you know, it'll be a little looser because I'm painting quicker. That's just how it works. So this is very important. The artistic release. Make sure that you have a clause written to some degree like that in your contract. A lot of clauses about liability and a limit of liability, damages, loss of product, the contract period, and then the payment schedule. What is the amount? What's the payment plan? What are the ramifications, or what's the punishment if they are late with the payments? That kind of thing. So then we're talking business. You're going to pay me. I'm going to do the job. I promise to do the job. I'm agreeing to do this job on this day at this time, and deliver it by this day. And then payment, this is what you're agreeing to do. And if you don't, there's going to be a charge, a late fee. You're a business. You run a business. You can't operate your business or survive financially if people are not paying you when they agree to pay you. So this is also very important. At this point, I include the travel cost refund policy. Force majeure That is an acts of God clause. That's also very important because I can say I'm going to fly from New Orleans to Denver. I'm game. Today, it's a beautiful day. I look outside and I'm like, I would love to paint in Denver today. But maybe the day that I am supposed to fly out, a hurricane hits New Orleans and my airport is closed and I'm stranded and I can't get there. That is an act of God. That is not outside of my control. Okay. Now we do everything that we can do to avoid that and to kind of mitigate those risks, especially whenever we're contracted to do a very important job on a very important day and we're getting paid well to do it. For example, a couple of years ago, we had a hurricane come through and we evacuated our house, me and my family. We drove up an hour and we stayed with my in-laws. And I had a wedding I had two weddings back to back, one in Los Angeles and one in San Diego. That the upcoming weekend. We evacuated to my in-laws and then I drove to Mississippi. I drove to a neighboring state to their airport. And I flew from that airport to Los Angeles. So I went above and beyond to get to those two weddings. And then after the wedding in San Diego, I flew back into the Mississippi airport because that's where my car was. And then I drove back. It was like 3 or 4 hours that I didn't ask the client to pay for. But I mean, I did what I had to do. And so, but what are you going to do? Especially if you're like in the middle of a layover or you get hit on the way, or a global pandemic, like anything could happen. And we know this, and you can only control so much. And honestly, having this clause in here, it gives you a sense of like, well, if it's out of my control, it's literally out of my control. I'm so sorry. I can't, the contract is canceled. Like it's your wedding day. I can't be there. And it also informs them ahead of time that if it's out of your control, you can't file a lawsuit. You can't sue me for getting stranded from a hurricane. You can't sue me for that. So that's a really important one. All right, artist friends, if you've been wanting to try oil paints but don't know where to start, I've got the recommendation for you. Chris Fornatero, also known as Paint Coach on YouTube, has an incredible course called The Foundations of Oil Painting. And honestly, it's one of the best resources out there for mastering the basics. Now, I have my own course and mentorship program specifically for artists and live painters. And I'm super proud of the work that we do there. But I'll be the first to tell you, we don't go nearly as deep into the fundamentals of oil painting specifically as Chris Fornatero does in this course. He breaks down everything, not only the materials that you need and how to use them, but also value, color mixing, brushwork, and setting up your palette properly so that it clicks. Whether you're brand new to oils or you just want to strengthen your foundation, this is the course that I recommend. To check out the course and support the show, visit paintwithpaintcoach.com or go to my show notes and click the link there that I've provided. Get the skills, the confidence, and the solid foundation to make your best work yet. One clause that I've added in the recent years is dangerous conditions. Dangerous conditions meaning if I'm in a position of feeling unsafe, if I'm being harassed, having a harassment clause. Especially for women working in the industry, people they completely lose their boundaries when they've been drinking, and they, there have been many times where I've felt uncomfortable and unsafe, and walking from the venue to my car at 1 a.m. What do you do? How can you prevent feeling that way, or even, God forbid, something terrible happened to you? You are harmed, you are injured. So having a clause in here states very clearly that if you, the artist, feel the vendor, the client, and that you, the artist, if you feel unsafe, then it is within your power to leave the unsafe environment. Okay. So make sure that verbiage is in there. And this could also look like they set you up on the floor plan right next to the speaker, next to the band. And the band has lost so much hearing that they have no idea how loud they are. And that's literally happened to me before. I was set up next to the speaker and there was nowhere else in the venue to relocate. And I kept having to go outside. And I told the planner, I was like, I can't do my job. I'm going to die. I'm literally, my head's going to explode. It's so loud. It's painful. I'm literally going to suffer hearing loss from this night. So having this clause included in there allows you the right to remove yourself from a situation like that. And then the next section would be terms of payment. If there's a payment plan, be very clear in that payment plan. And then I have a clause in here that says approved persons to be included in the painting. So if you're going to be painting wedding guests, family members, who are they by name? What are their roles? And be very clear based on the client's request, but be very clear in there so that on the wedding day, when somebody is like upset that they weren't included in the painting, you don't have to say, oh, well, look at the contract. You don't have to say that, but you can say with confidence, look, I was hired to do this job. The job detailed, including this many people. Let's, if you're unhappy, or if you want to talk about, we could talk about it after the wedding. Let's talk about it after the wedding. I never hear back from people after the wedding, but that people who were not like directly related, or maybe even paid for the painting, like you never know what people are going to ask in the heat of the moment at the event. And so having these details lined out ahead of time in the contract and agreed to and signed, that will help. It'll just help give you the confidence, like, no, I shouldn't feel pressured to put more people or more detail or change plans, change poses. Shouldn't feel pressured to do that because we have a plan and both of us have agreed to that. Okay. And then there's an appendix at the bottom that talks about arbitration. So this is also important. This is included in her templates as well, and my husband definitely agrees. If there's going to be a dispute, where is it going to be held? Okay, so if I have a client in, let's go back to Denver. If I have a client in Denver and they want to sue me over this contract, they have to have those proceedings here in my county, my parish, my court system. This will help you limit your legal fees. It's just that you want it to be litigated in your area. That's really important. So yeah, that's the wedding painting contract kind of broken down, and all of my students inside the Wedding Painters Blueprint receive my contract template. And so that's something that's included in everything that is included in the Wedding Painters Blueprint. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to welcome a few of my most recent students. They don't know this yet, but I'm going to be inviting a few of them on the podcast to share their experience, because it is, I've been kind of describing it like a mastermind. It is such an incredible in-depth experience for live wedding painters. And I'm really sad that it's over. Although it being almost summertime is carrying me through. And then, okay, I did want to mention my commission contract. Everybody who accepts commissions should have a contract. It could be a short one, that's fine. Just be very clear in describing what it is that you're going to create, and the payment schedule, payment plan, things like that. But one other element of the commission contract that I've included is just the deliverables. Usually for a commission, I will deliver more like process works ahead of time. The payment schedule is different. It's like a deposit instead of a retainer. When you hire someone, like you hire a vendor for your wedding, the down payment is called a retainer because you're retaining the vendor for that day a year from now on their calendar. That's non-refundable. That is non-refundable. If you're a wedding vendor or you're a live painter and you still call it a deposit, change it now to a non-refundable retainer. Now, if you're going to commission a painting, that's a product. You're putting money down on a product. That's called a deposit. It can be non-refundable if you want. Mine is non-refundable, but in order to secure that deposit with more confidence, I provide like preliminary sketches. We do have a phone call, things like that. So I go further with, I'll even maybe mock up if it's combining reference photos. I'll mock up a sketch in Photoshop just to give them like a visual representation with the images that they've sent me. I'll do that. There are so many, and maybe we do a part 2 of this one, but there are so many stories that I've heard and also experienced myself, of artists who have learned hard lessons by not including certain verbiage in the contract. One of them recently she was commissioned to do a painting, and that she was still talking with the client, and she was trying to clarify the vision. So she was doing all of these preliminary drawings, and she even did like a preliminary like digital drawing, which was it was more of a painting, but it was digital, so it didn't feel like the actual painting. She did a lot of work ahead of time and sent them back and sent them for approval, and then the client ended up ghosting her, so she never paid her. And the artist asked the group, wherever she had asked this question, she said, I mean, how do I bill them? How do I get paid for the work that I did? Or like, it was just a lot of work, and she didn't pay me for it. And the way that I see it is, if you're going to do the preliminary work, it should be included in the rate that you've provided, kind of thing. So you're being compensated for it, but it should feel to them like they're getting it for free, like it's part of the process. It happened to me. It's happened to me before, where I did a lot of extra work and it was like, they should pay me for that. Well, they didn't know they had to pay me for that. That wasn't clarified for them. They just thought they had options. And the clients will take advantage of your sketches and your generosity, and you're like, well, let's go back and forth about it. They have no idea that they should be paying you for that. So that's just something that I would think about. So that was kind of a thorough read through of my own contract, and all the clauses that are included, and why I think that they're important. I want to remind you guys that the Legal Page is hosting their mid-year sale this week. It is ending today at the end of the day on May 22nd of 2025. She will host the sale again next year, but it is just really important, if you want to take advantage of that. That sale is 40% off everything in the shop. Do so today. Now, moving forward, if you hear this episode and you would like to purchase a contract, or maybe you want to get some more supplemental clauses, maybe some amendments, cancellation amendments that are worded more professionally than you've tried in the past, like it's such a wealth of information. And she has a lot of free resources as well, including her podcast, the Legally Legit podcast. Paige is the best. Like, I really, really appreciate her generosity in the industry. She's provided a lot of confidence. Like, her contracts give the wedding vendors confidence and security in business. I mean, you don't have to worry about not being secure and safe on your end when you enter an agreement with a client. Use one of her contracts. I highly recommend them. If you purchase a contract from Paige this week, by May 22nd, you will save 40% on the contract. If you use the code TCA10 by this time period, then you will save an additional $10. So definitely take advantage of that. Moving forward, if you're listening to this episode in the future, if you use the code TCA10, you will save 10% on anything in the shop. So you still get that discount. You still get that discount code. Please use it, TCA10. I recommend that artists have a client contract. I also recommend that you have an independent contractor agreement. A lot of us work with maybe VAs, or we hire employees, or we hire contractors. Having an independent contractor agreement, as well as a non-disclosure agreement, will protect you and your business and set you up for success, and will set you up as an expert and a professional not to be messed with, for sure. And then furthermore, another clause that I would include is a model release clause. One of the ways that artists are sharing experiential content on social media lately is showing guest reactions and showing guests holding up their portraits. We're showing the faces of all of these guests and showing the faces of our clients. And so getting approval ahead of time with a model release contract is really important. So definitely grab those 3 or 4 that I mentioned, and then peruse. She's got many. I mean, I want to say like hundreds. She's got tons of contract templates available, with all the different clauses and everything as well. So please go check out the Legal Page. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it's been insightful. If you are a working artist who have worked with handshake deals in the past, and you don't want to mess with that anymore, and you don't want to get screwed over anymore, definitely set yourself up with a contract. I have leaned on my contract many, many times over the past decade plus and feel confident moving forward in the future. And it doesn't feel sleazy. It doesn't feel icky for me to say, all right, I'm going to send over my contract. Nobody is ever like, oh, ugh, you're one of those. Never mind. Nobody ever says that to me. They say, yeah, send it over. Let's get that signed. Let's get it on the books. Definitely makes you more confident and more professional and more secure in your business. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this.